You are offering to be the Tory heart and the Labour brain, Nick Clegg said today. Do you worry Labour lacks a brain?
Well, the first thing I think is that this is not just some kind of tactical document where we're looking at what the other two parties appear to lack. It's also what the Liberal Democrats happen to believe in, and what we've put on the front page of this manifesto are the things that we think are the big priorities for the country. But you're right, and Nick Clegg said earlier on today that there are many people who we think rightly question whether a Labour government actually can be trusted to sort out the deficit, to bring the budget deficit back into balance, to run the economy properly.
Are you one of those people?
And at the same time, I certainly am. I certainly don't have confidence that Labour can do that, and they've not explained clearly how they'll deal with the deficit. But I would also be one of those people, and millions of people, who would have listened, I think, to Evan's interview that I heard earlier on, and had those same doubts about whether you can ever trust a Conservative party to deliver the fair society that most people believe in, the quality of public services
for you to imagine
the
working
social protections
with a Labour government that you don't think has economic credibility?
No, look, I'm a Liberal Democrat, and therefore I believe in liberal democracy and liberal values. I'm not enthused about either the Conservative Party or the Labour Party. That's why I stood and came into politics for a much smaller party, where it's a much tougher deal than it is joining one of the other big two. But I'm passionate about liberal policies and liberal values. And this manifesto today is not just some sort of tactical device. It is what we believe in as a party. It is what we believe are the greatest challenges facing the country. And we want to use whatever power we have after the 7th of May to try to tackle these economic problems and create a fairer society of opportunity that we talked about today.
Let's look for a second at the Labour deficit plan, because they haven't put a date on when they get it down. Do you think that's downright stupid?
I think it is irresponsible and foolish of Labour, just literally in economic terms, leaving aside the politics, to have such a lack of clarity about deficit reduction. Look, deficit reduction really does matter. It matters because we shouldn't just be piling on vast debts for future generations, and it also matters.
So you would hold them to a date if you were going in,
it also matters.
You?
Let me just finish this point. It also matters because at some stage the economy in a few years' time might turn down again, and we cannot afford to have the levels of debt in relation to our economy that we've currently got. So we are very clear, just to come back and answer your question. Yes, we certainly expect, if we're part of the next government, to have that clear deficit reduction plan that we've set out, and also to be able to complete deficit reduction. Yes, we've said 2017-18, we want to finish it by then. We've also said that we're not willing to sign up to a process of deficit reduction.
So Labour would have to make the cuts.
Let me just finish this one point.
Just to clarify, because this is really important, if you went into a coalition with Labour, they would have to make substantial enough cuts for you to say, we will bring the deficit down by 2017.
Anybody that we're in coalition with, I think, needs to have that credible strategy for bringing the budget back into balance. But it's also got to be a fair strategy. And we're not prepared to sign up with the Conservative Party to these huge, swinging cuts in welfare, cuts in early years education, cuts in 16 to 19.
So David Cameron, as we've heard, has said...
So it's deficit reduction, but it's done fairly as well.
12 billion is the David Cameron figure for welfare cuts. You've signed up to 3, but not the other 9.
Yeah.
Is that a limit then? Is 3 as far as you can see those cuts going for the Lib Dems?
Well, we've looked at welfare. We've gone through every line item of the welfare budget, both Danny Alexander, who's in a good position to do so as the Chief Secretary, me as the person who's written the Lib Dem manifesto with others.
So
and
there's no budging from 3.
We cannot see how you could get to a figure of £12 billion without making massive reductions to things like child benefit, to disability benefits, things that we're simply not prepared to do.
Because Michael Gove didn't rule out cuts to child benefit, and you're saying you would not be prepared to go there.
We don't want to go down the line of having the means testing of child benefit. Well, no, that's why it's not in our manifesto. And we've set out very clearly, we set out over the weekend our proposals
like
for
housing
deficit
benefit?
reduction.
Looks like the Tories will have to cut housing benefit.
Well, we found about £3 billion worth of welfare savings, which we set out over the weekend, including putting a cap
about this £3 billion
of welfare increases, and also taking some of the benefits away from very affluent pensioners.
But there's a big gap now, you can recognise that, between the £3 billion that you're suggesting
a massive gap,
and the £12 billion that the Tories have. Somewhere, if you work together, you've got to find a way around that £9 billion. Can you imagine shifting up to 6 up to 7.
Look,
I know you don't want to give a figure, but at some point you can either say...
for all the parties, and not just the Liberal Democrats, but all other parties that might end up in coalition, which is all parties at the moment, to publish a manifesto of what you believe in, and then before you even know how many votes and MPs, to start negotiating away your position. What I'm saying is that these are our proposals. We've thought very carefully about them. The $3 billion is the maximum amount of savings for welfare that we think that we could safely find. And that is the proposal that the Liberal Democrats are making.
But you're not ruling out that it may go above $3 billion, realistically.
What I'm saying is that $3 billion is the Liberal Democrat plan. The figures that we've seen for the Conservatives, we believe, would involve driving huge numbers of people deeply into poverty. And this from a party, the Conservatives, that are not even proposing that those on very high incomes make a contribution to deficit reduction. We think that balance is completely bizarre. And it's the reason why the question that Evan was raising to the Prime Minister earlier is one that many people in this country think about. They see the Conservatives as a party that look after the rich and hit the poor.
I want to read one line from your manifesto which caught my eye. Page 130, it's about reform. And it says the Lib Dems would cancel the boundary review due to report in 2018. You would cancel that review. We know, of course, that it was the Lib Dems that put the kibosh on those boundary changes this time round. Is that a good way of saying we're going to sink the Tories and we're quite happy to carry on?
Well, firstly, I'm impressed that someone's got through to page 130. But what I would also say is the reason that we've written that into the political reform section of the manifesto is not that we're against having boundary changes, because obviously you have to do that to occasionally update for population changes. But what we're not prepared to do is have boundary changes without fairness in the rest of the political system.
But you could, I mean,
so we've got to
the
see,
Mail tomorrow is saying that all the
see,
Lib Dem seats in the southwest could be wiped out under a new Comrades poll.
This is complete and utter rubbish. It's a poll of 72 people in each individual seat without even polling the names of the MPs. It has no credibility at all as far as I can see. And we're very confident that we've got a strong message in this manifesto. We'll take that to the British people over the period between now and the election. And we hope to get support from the British people. And the more support we get, the more of today's manifesto we'll be able to deliver after the next election.
David Laws, thank you. Thanks for coming in.